Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the third session of the day. They say we are not supposed to judge a book by its cover. I say if you don't judge a book by its cover, you might as well shoot the designer who made it. Every piece of graphic design is a labor of love, and some of that scintillating art sits on your shelves, on your books every day, right now. Our next session is about just that. Our next author, Mr. Ahlawat Gunjan, is an award-winning designer, self-taught painter, TEDx speaker, and design educator. A graduate of the National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad, he has had a master's degree in graphic design from the Glasgow School of Art, UK. Trained at Lars Muller, Switzerland, and Faber and Faber, UK, Gunjan has worked closely with Penguin, Faber and Faber, Hachette, Little Brown, Hodder, Random House, and the list goes on, for creating unique book cover designs. Currently, he is the head of design at Penguin Random House, India. His book Slow is a beautiful consolidation of and an artistic experience of observing nature with slowness at heart and fluidity at hand. We'll be speaking more about his book in the session. Moderating this session is Madam Madhvi Naidu, master's in English and has a diploma in advertising. She's chosen to follow her passion. She's a self-taught artist and now works professionally in the field. She has sold more than 300 artworks over the last 15 years and works with the medium of canvas and ceramic. Her art adorns many homes, clubs, and restaurants, mostly in Nagpur, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and is now expanding to various parts of the world like America and Australia. She also gives guest lectures on art and literature related topics and enjoys participating in Literary Fest. I request Madam Madhvi Naidu to please usher our guest for today, our author for today, the dais.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so glad to see you all here. Einstein, a man of science, once said, look deep into nature and you will understand everything. So today we have Mr. Ahlawat Gunjan talking about his art journal, Slow is Beautiful, for mindful living through nature. So you can see the book cover, yeah? It's so beautiful. And it's an art journal, and if you go through it, difficult with the mic. It's like reading a painting. It's that beautiful. You must take the book, even if it is just to adorn your walls. It's so beautiful. So I would like you to talk more about your book. What is slow and what is mindful living?
Thank you, Madhvi, and good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, a word of caution. I'm a very nervous speaker, so please pardon me for that. I'm a first-time author. So, this book came around during the time of pandemic when I was, if I use the word, I was stranded at my parents' place, which is in Meerut. I used to go for these long walks to our fields and walk across the canal. And after finishing my undergrad in design, which was around 20 years back, I had this sense of pausing and had the time to reflect on nature once again with certain clarity, mindfulness. And something started happening to me. I'll come back and I'll make some doodles and I'll write few words. And that is how one day my publisher saw it and she said, I think you should make a pitch to Penguin. And I did make a proposal. It went through the rigors of acquisitions and sales was very excited, and that is how this book came into being. But when I started working on the book, I realized both in writing and visuals that it was always brewing in me. Pandemic just offered that time to sit and put it together in a cohesive, in a more structured way into a form called book. So yeah, this is how this book came into being, and while people say it's pretty and all, but I think the point I want to drive home with this book is to differentiate between ways of looking to ways of seeing. And it follows a three-part strategy, which is so when you differentiate between ways of seeing and looking, what are the tools I'm offering? One is you have to slow down. To whether it is a conversation, you want to hear somebody, you have to slow down to listen what the other person is saying. So slowness becomes a very crucial aspect of seeing. Second thing is breaking that sense of familiarity. More than often, we have this tendency to draw a tree like a tree, to draw a fruit like a fruit. And I, as a designer and an artist, is a firm believer that you should have your own voice, even in seeing. So, like how your handwriting is, how you sign your name, and therefore even your seeing, and therefore the interpretation should also be yours. So, therefore, debunking the idea of familiarity. And the last one is the power of making. And when I say power of making, is the fact that we use our hands. We have lost the art to make the grocery list or to draw a map for a friend for navigation, etc. And I felt while on those walks and coming back and doing doodling that I really missed that part of it. And all these things put together form a discourse for you to look, to differentiate between what is looking and what is seeing. So this is what the book is about, and it offers tools that are transferable to your professional life, to your personal life, and so on and so forth.
I thought you would also explain your various chapters. Why did you make it that way? Like you have 6 chapters and each one with a different name. What made you choose those?
So initially, Madhavi, the book was structured when I was doing it. I think I was doing a 3-part essay. Me as a farmer's son, me as a designer, and me as a human being. And they started feeling quite construed and overwhelming in that way. So I decided to break it down into parts. And even the small prompts that you see all over the book, they were like free-flowing. And it was more of editorial input that was given, that it will be better if we break it, for a reader to just go seamlessly. Could be good or bad, it can go whichever way. So therefore it was a joint discussion to break it into a 6-part, so to say. But still, I mean, the structure still follows. It's a very free-flowing structure. You can pick up any chapter, any prompt, anywhere, and then come, go back and forth.
So that's also a pro tip for people who want to write books. Like try and break it up in things so that it doesn't overwhelm you.
I guess so. That's how at least I approach anything, whether it is my design or it is my painting. I'm a firm believer that my reader or my author, when I design a cover, is an active participant in the meaning making, and therefore participation is very important. And to have that participation, I would love to leave some room for you to be involved in it. And therefore, with every prompt, there is a small exercise, a sort of an open-ended exercise, but to sort of spike your interest, give you a sort of some sense of direction to think and to do.
That, yes, I did find it very unusual that you've given us space to do something with our mind with the prompts that you've given.
Right.
So that's interesting. So when it comes to book covers, like how we heard so much about it, how do you condense, how do you think in your mind that this 300 to 500 page book would need this kind of a cover? I mean, what makes you decide, like this is what, because that's what attracts the person the first, time you look at a book is the cover.
Right.
Then you go into the book if you want to, or the author.
Right.
But on a bookshelf, if the cover has to really stand out. So what makes you think that this is the design that this book needs?
Firstly, I think for anybody to be a good designer and a book designer, you should read the book. And therefore, I endorse the fact that you should read the book. I read the books that I work on. And then a lot of things happen in your, somebody was asking me yesterday about my process, if my process is more hands-on or it's more digital, but I resolve a lot of things in my head. While I'm reading, I'm folding pages, I'm using a marker to mark certain areas that gives me more visual clues around the narrative in the book. And then you just make like a pool of things, and then you go on the net and then you look for images. And while you're reading the book, different ideas start coming to me. Whether I want to take an illustrative approach, and if I'm taking that, then I'll be looking for an illustrator to interpret the narrative. Or am I taking a more photographic approach, or am I taking a more typographic approach? So that comes because you have familiarized yourself with the subject at hand. And also there are inputs from, if there are certain specific inputs from the author or editor or the sales and marketing teams, those also are very pertinent in shaping the cover that we see.
So have you ever convinced an author who thinks otherwise? Like you felt that this is nice for the book and the author thinks otherwise?
Yes,
So-
of course.
So
Many
who-
a times that happens. And
Who won?
I can't give a definitive answer because you lose some and you win some. It's not a one-track answer. But what I do is, and going back, if I have read the book, I would have a more informed and educated argument around it, and therefore I'll be able to defend the visuals that I'm presenting. And I always believe in comparing and contrasting. So what you as an author want, I'll put it here, and what I am proposing, I'll put next to it, and then we can sort of debate over it and see what works. See, at the end, we are trying to better a product. So whether these are your inputs or my inputs, it's for the betterment of the product.
A collaborative effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And design is a collaborative process. Design is an iterative process. And when I'm designing books, I keep the artist in me away. Because for me, design is a service. And design is a service and is informed by the external factors. Whereas when I do paintings, not for the book, but otherwise also I paint and I host my shows, I do not listen to anybody. I just listen to my heart.
How important is art in life and design? They're not like life-saving things or rocket science or, that kind of a thing. It's just a thing of beauty for
Right.
most people. And it's just either there or not there. Doesn't make much difference for many. That's what they say. So why is art important?
Wow, I've been pondering over this question because someone recently reached out to do a TEDx, and I was thinking what different I can say. I don't want to talk about my covers and the process. And I've been pondering upon this question because there was a point in my life when I started feeling very small. So my cousins are, most of my family is in Air Force and Army. So someone is a Mirage pilot, or somebody is a Sukhoi pilot, or flying choppers, and then others are what you call gastroenterologist and a general surgeon. So you can imagine the risk that they take. And in that light, I started feeling really small, that my world moves around whether this font or that font, or this color or that color. And I started feeling very complex about it. This was, I think, some 10 years back. But I wanted to resolve the answer to myself then, because different people will have a different perspective, and that may work and not work, and I believe in resolving it in myself. So I thought art, yes, it may not kill you or survive you, but it is such an integral part of your being. What happened during Corona? No fighter pilot was trying to come and save you, right? Because it was art, whether it was music, people were getting back to cooking or knitting or gardening, but it is not cohered as a profession that people would appreciate, and that's where we lack. But I feel it is so pertinent to living, and as I say, mindful living. So I firmly believe in it.
Thank you. That's what I feel too. I felt small too at a time like when I was just after 12th and my uncles, aunts, everyone, oh, you're going to do medicine? No. Engineering? No. Law? No. Then art? Oh, art. It's like you're dumb, so you're doing this.
That's right. Imagine what I must have gone through when I went to study design and my dad said, nobody knew about an ID in my family. And all my uncles who were in army and engineering and police, they felt that my dad has lost the plot actually.
So, when it comes to art and issues, like many artists like to reflect what's happening in society in their art, make it like serious. And like, even if you go back to Picasso's Guernica, he's done this whole anti-war huge painting. So, you think art should be like that? Like, for example, Sousa's art, I wouldn't say is beautiful in dictionary sense. It's very disturbing. But it sells like in crores. So, it's not, like I said, it's not beautiful, like in the right sense. But still, people like to reflect society, make it disturbing, make art, make you think. So, what, according to you, is beautiful in art?
I think it's a feeling for me. So I may find Sousa beautiful because it's a feeling that resonates and art evokes that feeling. So somebody can also in my book may say, what trash is this? These are like very childlike strokes that you have used to interpret a tree or a flower or a cloud or whatever. But it's a feeling. So if a book is talking to X number of readers, it is doing something. Now that is a subconscious and unconscious feeling which is further informed by your socio-cultural, political background. So it's a question that I don't think can be answered in A, one line, and B, there is one definitive answer to it. It's like each to its own. So for me, it's a feeling, and and it does different things to different people. So.
So you also feel there is a relevance to it? Does society think because of disturbing images?
I wouldn't worry about society. I'm an artist and my job is to create without any kind of guards or fears. So I wouldn't care less about society really. Even if they discard it, I respect the feedback and move on.
That takes a special heart to do that.
No, seriously,
It's
I
not
mean,
easy.
when I paint, I did my first solo in Delhi in 2015 and I felt I have really, at NID we used to have juries and they used to be quite courageous, you know. And in that moment I really felt that, oh my God, why have I invited myself into the jury again that evening? But I think people responded really well to it. And even if they wouldn't have, I don't think it would have mattered. It would have moved a cell in my body to not do it the way I have been doing it.
But doesn't one do these things for appreciation? Like you are looking for appreciation, right?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes and no. Of course, I would agree that I love when people come and get say a book signed or buy my paintings. But if they don't, and I'm sure there are people, and in fact, to illustrate that, today I worked on Pico Ayer's new book, The Half Known Life, and I posted it on my Instagram, and of course, people were liking and all kinds of. Just now, half an hour before, there was a comment saying, some guy writes saying, "Sir, you have designed such a beautiful cover." And I think some 6 years back, I did 3 rejacket for Ruskin Bond. And he says, "Sir, आपने," and 3 names, I'm forgetting the titles, "आपने वो तीनों cover बर्बाद कर दिए." I mean, what do I say? I mean, that's fine, that's acceptable. He likes something that I have created, but he doesn't like something that I have created. And as a mature artist, I would take it in my stride.
So how was it? I mean, I read about you spending time with Ruskin Bond. So what, I mean, we all know Ruskin Bond. It's like childhood memories for us with these books and all that. So how was it? I mean, what did you learn or unlearn?
Right. I'm not sure of learning uh, I don't remember learning, but he is one of the most amazing persons I have met in my life. And this is 2016 when we were rejacketing his Room on the Roof for the 60th edition. I read the book, and it's a story which many of you would know. It's about friendship and love and loss, and I was so deeply moved that I thought, even after the reading the book, I want to really hear it from the man. So I packed myself to Landor, and I spent 3-4 days with him, hearing things from him, nuances that like they say, reading it between the lines. That's exactly what I wanted to do with him. And Ruskin is really humorous, and he'll pull jokes on himself. So if there is one learning that I took from Ruskin is to sort of crack jokes on yourself.
In your TED talk, you spoke a lot about trials and tribulations that you went through. So, what kept you positive through all that?
Truth be told, no, there are times when you are like really, literally like down and out and you really want to quit things. But I think some friendships, and the belief in those friendships kept me afloat. I had been fortunate to have some amazing colleagues to work with, some amazing authors to work with, some author friendship that turned into personal friendships. So, and I think in general, Madhavi, I'm a positive person, and I like to forgive and forget and move on. So, like the Instagram comment, I don't think I'm going to lament throughout the evening about saying Ruskin ka cover barbad kar diya. So that's okay. So, and being an artist or designer, or under the umbrella of creative segment, it is important for us to seek the criticism. And if you cannot take the criticism, I think there was something lacking in you.
That's true. And you wouldn't put yourself in the public eye too. If you are not okay with the criticism, you have to be. In
Yeah.
a way.
Yeah.
Anybody
Yeah.
who's like, then otherwise just be at home, be a nobody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I should thank my undergrad school, NID, where juries was such a good form of critiquing your work that it's about shedding all those nuances of egos, blah, 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 at home than outside in the world. So I think it all started from there, that we go through such rigorous training there that, it just doesn't bother anymore.
Any really good memory and a really bad memory from NID?
Wow. Uh, all good memories. I think, again, it's such a great institute to be at, and we were blessed to be mentored by some of the most renowned names in the industry then. Bad memory, yeah, I cut my finger, and I was making a piece of furniture as we have something called electives. So while you are studying graphic design, but you can do an elective in textiles, furniture, ceramics, and I don't know what happened. I got excited for furniture, and I was making a bamboo stool, and I was cutting the bamboo in a saw machine, and the knot came. So the bamboo flew off, but my hand went into the saw. So it just that was quite an incident which I can't get over with.
Coming to the jury, I just learned about all this. Like my daughter's studying in NIFT, so she was dreading the jury. I mean, you said that they really brought out the good. But do you think somehow the juries are people who judge your work, your assignments, so they come from outside for any students who are getting into this line of study. So, but it felt more like that they have to only criticize. So is it how our education system is becoming? Because even in school, it's unless you're in the top 5 or the top 10, the rest are kind of useless. That's what the students today feel, that the education system, the teachers, they're putting this kind of pressure by only criticizing. So is that necessary, like how you said, in a jury?
I think the central idea, I cannot comment on the education system in general, but if I may say, during my time at NID, the central idea is to shake you up, is to let you question things that you haven't been. It is to direct your attention to aspects that you have missed in your assignments, your presentation, your course. And I think that structure really works because it also allows you to present yourself. It's not a monologue, it's a dialogue. So I think it's quite important, and it's a great way, I think, in design. Otherwise, you can't give them examination to write because that's not how the professional world is going to pan out for you. And so
It's
for
not
instance,
always a cakewalk.
absolutely no, and also it's not like I have done those arguments with, say, jury, and I'm still doing arguments with my authors here. So there's a direct takeaway here. Instead of writing an exam, I mean, who will, and it's not even possible because how can you say only certain font will work for this and not for this? You can only discuss and argue objectively and keep the subjectivity aside. And I think what they try to do in juries is to tell you that deconstruct the idea through objectivity and keep the subjectivity aside, because we creative person in us subjectivity does seep in from somewhere. Even today, in my book or even covers that I make, same cover if some other designer would attempt it very differently. So but how do you keep the objective in line is, I think, what they wish to do.
Thank you, that's a takeaway. And if any design students are here, or if any of their children getting into design, what do you think should be the right approach? Because you have gone through the traditional route.
Right.
You've done in NID and then Glasgow, and then got to where you are.
Right. So one thing that I would really say is to try to understand that design is different from art. This is an ongoing myth that I hear all the time. Oh, my child draws really well and she wants to go to NID or NIFT or SEPT. If they want, so first you have to differentiate that, because NIFT or NID or SEPT are more service-oriented schools. So therefore, imagination is the heart. So it's not about whether I can draw well, so I'll crack an ID, or if I don't draw well, I will not crack an ID. No, I just don't agree to that. It is the imagination, because everything, design is all about innovation at the end. Whether it is a product design, or it's a textile design, or it's a piece of furniture. How do you think? How do you interpret your ideas? And then how do you objectively take it to the world? Art is something, and I should not comment on the professional side of the art because I'm a self-taught person, but I think it is more internally driven, and I do not know the modalities of that. But to get into design, I think imagination and innovation are the two keys that you've got to keep in mind. And the openness, and like I said, you need to have a critical mindset. If you cannot take critique during that time, you can't take critique from a client who's paying you, because you will have all sorts of, whether you work for a client, or in my case, you work for authors, people will give you feedback. So you've got to be receptive to the feedback.
But aren't artists and innovators generally very sensitive?
Sure.
That is why they can create, right? So I think
and that's why I'm saying that art is very different from design.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that designers are not sensitive, but I think the way they approach things with a more, with a given brief, so that defines the contours of what I'm doing, how my research will happen, etc., etc. Whereas in paintings, of course, with due respect, I mean, they are, of course, sensitive, but for me, it's more a personally created brief for that. So when I do a landscape,
it's just for yourself.
It's for myself.
Yeah.
And if you like it, wow, I got lucky.
Yeah.
And if someone buys it, I got even more lucky. But I do not have a set brief for it because I honestly don't know, will I be using watercolors? Will I be just picking charcoal and just do something and I start liking it? I don't know.
And whereas design is, of course, commercial.
It's
totally.
yeah.
You're working
yeah,
for someone
yeah,
else.
that's right. There's a brief, there is a client, and not so much in art for me.
Thank you. So the next and the last section. So I wanted to ask you questions with your subheadings that you've given, your chapters in your
Okay,
book,
right.
but with a twist.
Okay.
So the first one was imagining. Where would you imagine yourself to be 10 years from now? I know it's a cliched question, so
It's
but
a
we
very
know.
cliched question, Madhvi, and I don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes. I can't think of 10 years at all, so I really don't know.
So what about these goals? Like everybody says that you have to have a goal.
I don't believe in that.
No?
I just don't believe in that. Like, for instance, my book is a right example. I never thought 2 years, I work in publishing, I work with authors, and I never thought that I'll do a book one day. I believe in an organic process. I never thought I'll be doing paintings one day. I'm a trained designer and I earn my bread and butter through this. So I paint, I write, and I also illustrated the book, and I play piano. So yeah, I don't know what will happen tomorrow.
These questions I made so that we get to know you as a person
Thank
more.
you.
So, well, we do.
Sure.
Oh. And the next one was belonging. So what is your most prized belonging, the possession that you
Mom.
have?
Mom.
But that's a person.
No, that's fine. I don't believe in materiality. Yeah, that's the biggest blessing that I have. And if one thing that would break me to pieces is the fact that my mom won't be there tomorrow.
So your mama's boy.
No, I'm daddy's boy also, but I don't know, somehow I can imagine to part with dad but not with mom.
Oh, okay. Being, the third one was being. What or where is the place that you can completely feel at ease and be yourself?
I think it's my study back home with a wall with lots of ceramic plates that I have collected from my travels. A lot of textile around me. I love textiles, so lots of cushions and carpets. And and my piano on the other side.
And if it is to be some place in the world?
Wow. I really like going to London, so Hampstead Heath is my place.
Me too. London's been my favorite place always.
Yeah.
It's always like every time you go, there's something new to see, new to learn.
So much of history and shared history, and it's like a mecca for an artist and designer. So it's a beautiful, beautiful place.
The fourth one is creating. How old were you when you first discovered that you were a creative person?
This question is for mom and dad and not me. Because I think, as far as I remember, what they tell me is I have always been very creative, whether I was making sand castles back home or just tampering in the kitchen with mom. I've always been creating. I've always been creating.
The fifth one is observing. When you observe today's young generation embarking into creative fields, what is the first thing that you notice about Gen Z?
I think they're
Good or
just
bad?
in some sort of a rush to get somewhere. It's just, they just feel, and I have a lot of young cousins at home and now friends, kids. And my one point advice is there is no elevator to success. You have to take the staircase. And when you take the staircase, it's really beautiful.
That's why they need to read that.
Slow is
Not to
beautiful.
rush.
Yeah.
The last one is perceiving. Do you believe that people see what they want to see? Or can perceptions be changed through the way one expresses through art or the written word?
I think it can be modulated. Yeah, it can be modulated, and especially being a designer and an artist. part of my job is to hold the remote control the way you will see what I want you to see. So when I do my book cover designs, it's not that that was the only visual available in this universe to put across the book jacket, but there are certain elements that have gone into me and which I call holding the remote control. So yeah, perceptions can be changed. Sometimes authors get surprised that I never thought my book could have this kind of a cover. And to give an example, something is coming to my mind is there's a book that I designed called Moong Over Microchip. This is by Venkat Iyer, who was working in a fast-paced IT setup in Pune, and then one day just decided to quit everything and just they bought a patch of land and they wanted to start farming. And Penguin commissioned this book, and I was very excited to do it because there is farming. And I was coming back from Dehradun on a flight, and when you approach Delhi, this time it was approaching from Noida side, and there were a lot of like paddy fields. I saw them, and something happened, and it stayed with me. Next day, when I reached my office, I saw my keyboard. It had partitions in it, so had the paddy fields. I wish I had that image to show you.
I've seen it. It's like half the book cover is the keyboard with the checkered thing. When you see from the flight, you can see checkered fields. So half of it is the fields and...
Know how I multiplied,
integrated
checkered paddy fields onto the keypad. And that's what the book is about.
Yeah.
So perception, when Venkat saw this, he wrote a very sweet email saying that I never imagined a book cover to be like this. So I feel perceptions can be changed also.
So now to the audience, anyone has any questions?
I'd like to open the floor to the audience.
Yeah, there are lots.
Hello.
She's asking, sir.
Well, thanks Gunjan, thanks Madhavi for the wonderful session. I just wanted to ask you, have you ever come across, I mean, as you said that you generally read, you go through the book before designing the cover. So did you ever come across any book which you didn't find interesting while reading, but still have to manage to design a cover for it?
Can I speak truth or no?
Yes, I want to know the truth.
Of course, it happens all the time that maybe that subject matter is not exciting for you. Like I love working on a lot of fiction, but imagine I'm doing a non-fiction, so I may not be interested in that subject. But yeah, I can't say no. So I have to go through that, and then I think the challenge lies: how do you make it interesting then? Have conversation with your author, have conversation with your sales, go to a bookstore, talk to a bookseller, talk to an unknown reader, and then say, hey, if you have a book like this, how would you like the cover to be? So you can draw up clues and inspiration from wherever.
So you wanted to ask?
Not to start with, but I think it is, I come from a mindset that I am addressing someone's years and years of body of work, and therefore I would really like to hear his or her thoughts, and as far as possible would like to integrate them. And as I mentioned, it's a collective thing. So we are trying to I as a designer who works for a brand, and someone as an author is trying to better this product, and it's a collective product. So I would really like to at least hear what he or she has to say. Yes. Of course, went back to drawing board.
He's ultimately the buyer.
Yes, buyer is no, he's not the buyer. I mean, buyers are the people who are buying the book, but he is one of the stakeholders. He or she is one of the stakeholders in the product. So I would really like to, and I don't take it in a derogatory way. Sometimes you may, no matter you have read the book, but he or she may come up with such an important aspect of the book that you were missing in the book. And now you, for me as a designer, it is a challenge. How do I translate that into visual? That is aesthetically appealing, contextually appropriate, and makes everybody happy in the process.
Thank you.
I was professor of philosophy and now working on language of aesthetics. And therefore my question, do you take beauty to be a quality or a non-natural quality like taste with T capital or a value?
Sir,
May
sorry, you have to
may
repeat.
I repeat?
Yes, please.
Do you take beauty to be a quality or non-natural quality like taste with T capital or a value?
I think it's for me, beauty is a quality. And especially in my design, as I just said, that no matter how much I align the design to the context of the book, but if it is not presented with a certain aesthetic value, it may not appeal to a large number of audiences, because we all respond to beauty in a certain way and there's a certain pleasantness in it. So therefore, it is critical in design, but it's not everything in design for me.
Thank you.
Sir, sir, I'm Jahangir Dungaji.
Hello, sir.
Your book is very lovely cover. Everything is very nice. Slow is beautiful. What will be the name of your next book? Will it be Fast is Fantastic?
I don't even know if I'll do the second one. If it happens, it will happen, sir. But I have not thought about that. Like I said, even this one till 2 years back, I didn't know that I will be doing a book one day. So I really cannot, sorry, can't answer you with clarity, but I
Thank
don't
you.
know.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any youngsters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, great session. Thank you. So I'm sure there must be some aspects of your personal life that spill into your professional life and vice versa, right? So any reflections on that and while doing that, right? Uh, Continuing and having that aspect of slowness. So any reflections on that part?
I think discipline is one thing that immediately comes to my mind. That having that sense of discipline going from my personality into my professional work, because we bring out 300 books in a year, and each book is scheduled in a certain month. You cannot mix them up, because that would have repercussions and also financial repercussions on the budget. So therefore, you got to be in discipline that everything happens in a certain time. You got to be on top of the planning. You got to be on top of managing your teams and also making sure everybody is doing what they are doing in time with quality. So discipline is one thing that I can say from here to there. Now from there to here, I don't know. I think it's a sense of openness and the feeling to try more, and there is no one definitive answer to anything, is what I think I apply on my personal side from my professional side.
Yeah. The one in the blue.
I think that question is more for Madhavi to answer than me, actually.
Sorry, I was looking somewhere else. Can you repeat? I don't think inclusiveness, it's very personal. Art is very personal, so we're not trying to include, you know, people or whatever. You are expressing, in fact, what you are thinking. Maybe if they connect to it, it's inclusive. But that happens. If it happens that they connected, yes, it's inclusive. If it doesn't, like how we mentioned, well, too bad. Okay, if I do something for a client, like in the sense it's commissioned art, then it becomes like the graphic book design thing, like it is a collaborative effort, like my art, what I'm thinking, how I can do my kind of style with maybe their inputs because they ultimately want to put it up in their home and they should enjoy it too. So then it becomes like a design thing. So when I do commissioned art, that's how it is. So
I
then
can
it's
an-
inclusive, you can say that. It's a, yeah.
I can build upon that from the design point of view. We do because certain colors that people associate only with girls and guys. And we do have those informed discussions and sometimes arguments in our jackets meeting. But why? Why do I have to use a pink on a book which is more, say, on pregnancy? But why can't men read about pregnancy? So therefore, certain fonts that we would use, for a certain subject. So in that sense, yes, we do. As a designer in me, I am very conscious of that, to have this, keeping away these gender biases away from the ground.
My question is for you, is that what are your views on the quote, don't judge a book by its cover?
No, you should judge a book by its cover, otherwise I'll be out of job.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Maithili. When I read about the intro, it talked about, and your book also talks about mindfulness. My question to you is twofold. Firstly, what do you think, what role art has to play in mindful living? And do you yourself engage into any particular activities or exercises or things that help you live mindfully? That's it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Let me answer the second one first. So, yes, I don't think I get involved into any kind of activity. I don't think my professional life allows me luxury of time to do that. But doing dishes at home is a great exercise for me because my work is so open-ended that while you close it, but you may not have closed it in your mind. Mind keeps thinking. But by, say, for example, doing, even after having the cook and a maid at home, but you say, I'll do the dinner dishes and then get the kitchen, I feel there's a sense of completion, and it sort of closes certain doors in your heart and mind when you go to bed. And so I do that very mindfully. I play piano, and the rests make the music. So, and there is so much in the rests. So also taking, when I talk to somebody, I also like to listen them and not just rushing through the conversation. So, and I feel there is so much of mindfulness in that. Or for instance, even chewing your food properly. There is so much of mindfulness in that, and cherishing, even if it is a simple dal rice, but eating it properly, drinking your water like you are chewing your water. There is so much of mindfulness in that. Coming back to your first question, how important it is, I think I've already answered that. I mean, drinking your water properly, eating your food properly, listening to your friends, family, colleagues, clients properly. I think for me, it's really important. It's like part of me.
Hello, sir. I am Madhvi's husband.
Hi.
Very simple question. The future of design, art and design education in India, your inputs.
I think it's really going to flourish because more than ever, the world is expanding both in art and design. So people are getting more, and of course, with the invent of internet and social media, people are getting more informed and educated. Even in a small town or a village, people know, say. Even if I take my own example, a lot of people back home didn't even know that there is a career in something called book design. Are you sure you are able to even earn your bread and butter just by designing covers for a book? These days, buttons are designed and loops are designed. Everything is designed, so there must be somebody who's doing it, and there must be market for it, and therefore somebody is doing it. So people are so informed now, whether it's a piece of furniture or a glass or a mic or whatever you may take it, a good design will always have its value and will also leave certain impact on the end users, and they will come back to it. And Apple is such a good example, such a simple design, but it has created waves across. So I think it's wonderful.
We have time for, I think, one question. This person's new. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Manish, and as a graphic designer, we face the problem of the seeing and looking.
Right.
What we are seeing, exactly that time the client is looking at that. So how to bridge this gap between seeing and looking few times? Because sometimes the client becomes so adamant that he wants the way he is looking at the design, and we want to give the design how we are seeing at that.
Right.
So how to bridge this gap?
This
Without getting into fight or
course.
into arguments.
No, not only fight, you want your paycheck to be, you want the payment to come in full. This is an ongoing debate that should we designers be also the educators for the client? Is that my job also? I am a believer to a certain extent, yes. It's like me making a pasta for you and you have never eaten a pasta. Unless and until I tell you what aromas to look for, what textures to feel in your mouth, how to smell the cheese or oregano in it, he or she would not be able to enjoy the dish. So I think little bit of briefing, little bit of grounding is important, but of course you can't make him or her to like the pasta the way probably you would like. So we can only go till certain extent, and then after that is their call. A. B, the very fact that you are coming to me and not going to another designer or another design agency is a testament that you believe in what I bring on the board. And C, I always feel the strategy of compare and contrast. So if you don't think this works, then why don't you show me what works? And then you, being an informed, educated, experienced designer, can say what doesn't work in this, and that is why I'm not taking that route.
I have a question for you. As somebody who works in the design industry, we're always very particular about what goes out as our work, because it not only it is going out in the world, it is going to be a part of our legacy per se. Have you had a project looking back that you regret now, and you're kind of you not want it to exist somewhere in the face of the world right now? And how do you feel about it now?
Just move on. That was not the last project of my life. So whatever factors there may have been, whether like a difficult client or budgetary constraints or whatever, that's not the last project. And that's what, when students come to do their internships and graduation projects with me and they want to chisel the project, and they're taking extra time and paying their schools, I tell them, you have done your best. And this is probably the first project of your life. So just move on. So same thing I tell myself, I've done my best, and if it still doesn't fulfill me or someone else, just move on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this session. I've been here in this hall for the last, my second day. This has been the most slow, beautiful, fluid and lucid session that we've had here.
Thank you.
It flew so well, and thank you very much. I'm sure everybody is going back enriched and feeling so centered about how we are approaching our work, our creative industries. We'd like to present you with a token of appreciation that has been made by a very young artist. VLF is associated with an art commune called Alag Angle. A very young artist was briefed on your book, and she has made this for you. Her name is Vanchika Ukande. Vanchika, if you're here, I'd like you to come forward. If not, ma'am, I'd like you to present the painting to him.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madhvi, and thank you everybody for listening to us.